Imagine building a fantasy empire, a sprawling universe, packed with ancient prophecies, monster-hunting mercenaries, royal bloodlines, and magic soaked in mystery. Then imagine watching that empire fall apart, not because of budget cuts or special effects, but because of silence. That's what happened to The Witcher. Once positioned as Netflix's answer to Game of Thrones, it had all the tools for success: a passionate fan base, rich source material, and a lead actor who actually loved the story. But behind the scenes, cracks were forming. Creative differences boiled into open conflict. Fans felt ignored. Executives gambled, and one seemingly small decision, changing the lead actor, set off a chain reaction that would ultimately destroy one of Netflix's biggest bets. This isn't just a recap. It's the full story of how The Witcher went from phenomenon to failure. When the news broke that Henry Cavill was leaving The Witcher, fans didn't just react, they revolted. Because Cavill wasn't just a big name, he was one of them. He'd played the games, read the books, and defended the lore during interviews. In one behind-the-scenes clip, he corrects a writer mid-scene to ensure Geralt's motivations match Sapkowski's vision. He wasn't showing off, he cared. So when Netflix announced he'd be replaced by Liam Hemsworth, it didn't feel like a casting update. It felt like betrayal. Social media turned hostile. YouTube flooded with angry breakdowns. A Change.org petition to reinstate Cavill gathered over 300,000 signatures in under a week. It wasn't about Liam personally. It was about what the change represented. Creative control was slipping. The lore was secondary. The passion was gone. This wasn't just about a face. It was about faith. And the fans had just lost theirs. The casting was just the tip of the iceberg. Insiders began whispering that Cavill's departure wasn't voluntary, that he'd clashed repeatedly with the show's writing team, that he fought to keep Geralt grounded, philosophical, gruff. But the scripts kept drifting toward action-heavy, Marvel-style banter. Then came the now infamous Instagram live Lauren Schmidt Hissrich, the showrunner, appeared to explain the direction of Season 4. But when viewers flooded the comments with frustration, some polite, many not, she visibly unraveled. At one point she said, "We put our hearts into this, but some of you just want to tear it all down." Her eyes welled, her voice cracked. The stream ended early. What should have been a rallying cry became a red flag, because the showrunner, the person steering the ship, didn't look confident. She looked exhausted. And that only added fuel to the theory that things were far worse behind the scenes than fans realized. When Season 4 dropped, it should have been a celebration. But instead, it felt like a funeral. Even before the episodes aired, fan forums were quiet. Enthusiasm had turned to hesitation, then disappointment. The reviews came in fast, and they were brutal. Critics called it confused, uninspired, soulless. Fans on Reddit dissected each episode, pointing out character inconsistencies, plot holes, and scenes that felt like reshoots. Rotten Tomatoes dropped below 20% audience score. Streaming analytics showed that many viewers didn't finish the first 3 episodes. Even mainstream media outlets called it a nosedive. And then came the real blow. Netflix's quarterly report: over 1 million subscribers lost, many citing disappointment in original programming. The show that was once Netflix's flagship fantasy series had become its most expensive cautionary tale. If the recast and ratings weren't enough, the leaks sealed the fate. Screenshots began to surface, Slack conversations, internal emails, alleged voice memos, all painting a picture of chaos. One leaked message claimed Henry had more respect for the source material than the writers. That was the real problem. Another, supposedly from a mid-level Netflix executive, read, "This show is becoming a PR nightmare. We backed the wrong visions. What hit hardest?" A production assistant posted a cryptic Instagram story. "Some of us still believe in Geralt, but we don't write the scripts." Within days, YouTubers, TikTokers, and entertainment blogs were analyzing the leaks. Fans felt vindicated. What they suspected for years was now all but confirmed. The people making The Witcher didn't really love The Witcher. To understand why The Witcher's fall hit so hard, you need to understand who was watching. These weren't just casual binge watchers, they were loyalists. People who read the books multiple times, gamers who spent hundreds of hours exploring The Witcher 3, fantasy fans who'd been starving for a darker, more mature story than what was typically served on streaming platforms. And in 2019, The Witcher delivered. Season 1 was gritty, fragmented, and confusing to some, but it respected its audience. It didn't hold your hand. It dropped you into the world and said, "Keep up." Geralt was morally complex. The continent felt cruel and real. Characters had secrets, scars, and shades of gray. Henry Cavill's Geralt was restrained, thoughtful, brutal when needed, but never needlessly edgy. His performance was a rare balance of subtlety and strength. Every grunt had meaning. Every pause in his speech said more than a monologue could. Ciri wasn't just a chosen one trope. She was scared, angry, and human. Yennefer's journey from disfigured outcast to powerful sorceress was moving and full of raw trauma. And for fans, these weren't just characters. They were anchors. They were the reason people stuck around, even when the story meandered. But by Season 3, and especially Season 4, that depth vanished. Geralt spoke less. Not in the strong, silent way, but in the reduced screen time way. He became a side character in his own saga. Ciri's transformation into a warrior happened too fast. Her grief, her rage, her guilt, barely explored. Yennefer's complexity gave way to bland leadership dialogue. The fire was gone. Worse still, fans noticed that scenes designed to carry weight often fell flat. Moments that should have had emotional impact were undercut by awkward pacing or rushed resolutions. Entire arcs felt condensed. Entire relationships lost their spark. The once great chemistry between Geralt and Yennefer muted. The father-daughter dynamic between Geralt and Ciri barely touched in Season 4. Then came the exposition dumps, where episodes became overloaded with dialogue, designed to explain instead of show. What once felt like a handcrafted fantasy world now felt like it was being written by an AI that had only skimmed the wiki. And fans felt it. They felt that disconnect. Because The Witcher wasn't just about swords and monsters. It was about people trying to survive a cruel, broken world together. When that emotional core was lost, it didn't matter how big the battles got. It didn't matter how expensive the CGI was. The soul of the story was gone. And once you break that bond with your audience, once they stop feeling something for the characters, they don't just walk away, they grieve. Then they get angry. Then they make sure everyone knows exactly what went wrong. Every great downfall starts quietly, not with a scandal or a viral clip, but with distance. Lauren Schmidt Hissrich's fall from grace didn't happen overnight. In fact, during the early days of The Witcher, she was celebrated a talented writer with a solid resume, passionate about bringing complex female characters to life, and willing to take creative risks in a male-dominated industry. When The Witcher premiered in 2019, she was on top of the world. Netflix executives praised her as a visionary. Interviews framed her as the mind behind Netflix's next big universe. She talked about 7-season arcs, spin-offs, prequels, the works. But somewhere between success and ambition, something changed. The pressure of steering a global franchise began to show. Sources claimed the writers' room grew divided. Some wanted to stay faithful to Andrzej Sapkowski's novels, while others wanted to modernize the tone, simplify storylines, and inject political undertones for mass appeal. Henry Cavill reportedly fought for the former. Lauren, according to leaks and anonymous staff quotes, leaned toward the latter. At first, those disagreements were manageable. But as the show gained popularity, so did the creative tug-of-war. Cavill began publicly talking about staying true to Sapkowski's intent. It sounded harmless, but to executives and showrunners, it was a warning shot. Behind closed doors, frustration mounted. Some crew members said Cavill's attention to detail slowed production. Others admired it, calling him the lore compass of the set. Lauren was caught in the middle, between a network that wanted spectacle and a lead actor who demanded integrity. And when push came to shove, Netflix chose the path of least resistance. Henry left. Lauren stayed, and that decision would haunt them both. After Cavill's exit, Lauren tried to hold her ground. She spoke in interviews about new energy, about redefining Geralt's story for a new era. But those words didn't land to fans. They sounded rehearsed, like PR damage control. As backlash erupted, she doubled down. Instead of addressing fan concerns about the writing, she defended creative choices. Instead of acknowledging the lore debates, she brushed them off as overblown. And in that moment, she crossed an invisible line. From passionate creator to perceived corporate mouthpiece, fans noticed. Clips of her old interviews resurfaced, where she dismissed book purists as a small but loud minority. That quote spread like wildfire. People started calling her Hollywood arrogance personified. The irony? She wasn't a villain. She was exhausted, trying to balance a billion-dollar franchise, endless internet scrutiny, and a narrative that no longer belonged to her. But in Hollywood, perception is everything. And once fans turn, no amount of hard work can save you. Inside Netflix, executives were panicking. Reports surfaced of emergency meetings, discussions about franchise realignment, and talk of bringing in new creative leadership. For future seasons, Lauren's silence in the following weeks only amplified the speculation. No statements, no interviews, no apologies, just silence. And that silence became its own story. YouTubers made breakdowns titled, "The Witcher's Silent Collapse." Entertainment sites ran headlines like "Showrunner Ghosts Fandom After Meltdown." The longer she stayed quiet, the louder the internet became. Former writers started liking critical tweets. Crew members posted cryptic emojis. One producer reportedly told a journalist off-record, "Morale's gone. We all feel like we're watching something die." Even people within Netflix began distancing themselves. PR teams stopped mentioning The Witcher in investor calls. Future spin-offs were quietly shelved. And that's when Lauren's career reached its crossroads. Would she own the mistakes, rebuild trust, and fight for redemption? Or fade into the background as the face of one of Netflix's biggest creative implosions? The tragedy is that Lauren didn't start as a villain. She started as a fan. But fans expect honesty. They expect you to care as much as they do. And when you lose that connection, no amount of budget, marketing, or special effects can bring it back. In the end, her story mirrored Geralt's in a strange way. Someone burdened by destiny, fighting against forces larger than herself, trying to do good but constantly misunderstood. Only this time, there was no redemption arc waiting in the next episode. For many fans, Lauren's downfall wasn't just about creative failure, it was symbolic. A reminder of what happens when Hollywood stops respecting the people who made their stories powerful in the first place. The fans didn't want perfection, they wanted authenticity. And when they didn't get it, they did what the internet always does. They turned her story into a warning. Once upon a time, The Witcher was Netflix's crown jewel. It had the lore, it had the audience, it had the perfect Geralt. But it also had a flaw, one that grew until it became fatal. They stopped listening. The fans, the lore, the tone, everything that made The Witcher special was sacrificed for something safer, flashier, simpler. But in fantasy, as in life, shortcuts come at a cost. And in the end, all it took was one wrong step to bring the whole kingdom down.